Funny thing about suburbs, they always look peaceful from the outside. Rows of clean fences, trimmed hedges, friendly waves at 8 a.m. But behind every porch light, there's a story. Ours started with snow. A simple snowman, built by two laughing kids and their tired but happy dad. We weren't looking for trouble. We were just making memories. But that's the thing about people who crave control. Even joy can look like rebellion to them. And what started as a silent drive-by turned into a war. A war of paper, power, and pettiness. But in the end, one snowman stood tall. And everything changed. I never thought a snowman would be the thing that set everything in motion. It started on a quiet December morning in Maple Glen, Ohio. One of those picture-perfect, sleepy suburbs where nothing ever seemed to happen. The kind of place where mailboxes match and people wave from driveways but never ask how you're really doing. My kids, Mia and Jonah, were bundled up like little marshmallows, rolling snowballs and laughing like nothing in the world could touch them. That morning was special. First snow of the season. We built our best snowman yet. 3 solid tiers, a scarf from Jonah's closet, eyes made of old bottle caps, and a carrot I stole from last night's stew. It wasn't just a snowman. It was ours. A little moment of joy in a year that hadn't had much of it. And then she showed up. Margo Delaney. Brand new to the neighborhood. Drove a white Range Rover with blacked-out windows and a custom license plate that said, "Rules." She was the kind of woman who walked like she had a clipboard in her soul. Cold eyes, tighter ponytail, smelled faintly of peppermint and control. I barely noticed her car until the tires screeched, then crunched. Right through the snowman, flattened him like roadkill. She didn't stop. Just rolled down her window, tossed something onto my front lawn, and drove off. Mia stared at the mound of broken snow and crumpled scarf. Jonah started crying. I picked up the paper. Notice of violation, HOA Rule 3.2.5. Unauthorized seasonal decorations. Fine, $50. I stood there in stunned silence, steam rising from my breath. And for a moment I thought, maybe she's just new, maybe it was an accident, maybe she didn't see it. But deep down, I knew better. That night, my wife, Rachel, came home from her shift at the hospital. I told her what happened. She laughed at first, thought I was joking. Then she saw the broken carrot and Jonah's red-rimmed eyes. She really ran it over? Right through him, like it was trash. Rachel frowned, taking off her coat. That's weird. Weird. It's psycho. She shrugged. Maybe she's just trying to assert authority. That stuck with me. Authority. Margo didn't feel like a neighbor. She felt like a warden. 3 days later, we built another snowman. Bigger this time. We packed the snow tighter, gave him arms made of branches, and even let Jonah name him. Commander Frosty. We stood back, proud, took pictures. Mia said we should send it to Grandma. It felt like we were reclaiming something, rebuilding, literally. At 2 a.m., the security camera pinged. I sat up in bed, Rachel still snoring beside me. I checked the feed. There she was, wearing a black coat, hood up, marching across my lawn with a freaking shovel. She didn't hesitate. Took one swing, crack. The head rolled off. Another. The middle section exploded in chunks. She stomped the rest with her boots, then turned, looked directly into my camera, and smiled. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, another HOA letter was taped to my front door. Obstruction of community harmony, fine, $75. Harmony. That woman came into our neighborhood like a storm and called it harmony. I showed the video to Rachel. She stared at the screen, jaw clenched. "This is harassment," she whispered. "No, this is war." I tried to be the bigger person. Really, I did. After the second snowman got destroyed, I posted the security footage in our neighborhood Facebook group. No ranting, no accusations. Just a quiet caption. For those curious about our recent violation, Thought it was worth sharing. I expected some support. Maybe a neighbor or two chiming in with sympathy. Maybe someone admitting they'd had a weird run-in with Margo too. But the post got taken down within 20 minutes. Reason? Content that may incite hostility within the HOA community. No one messaged me. No one even liked it. Except one. A comment from an account named Parker B. Just a single word. Typical. I didn't know who Parker B. was. But that word told me everything I needed. This wasn't new. Margo had been doing this for a while. By the end of the week, 3 more people on the block had perfectly trimmed lawns, and bright orange HOA warning tags fluttering on their doorknobs. One of them, Mr. LaRue, a retired Navy vet who spent his mornings pruning roses, had his bird bath deemed non-compliant. I saw him trying to hide it behind a hedge. The man looked defeated. I waved when I passed him. He didn't wave back. Rachel watched from the living room, arms crossed. She's choking this neighborhood one flower pot at a time. Yeah, I muttered, and everyone's letting her. Because they're scared, she said, of the fines, of being targeted. Or because they're complicit, she turned to me. So what are you going to do? That night, after putting Mia and Jonah to bed, I sat in the garage with the space heater humming and started watching every clip my cameras had saved for the past 2 weeks. I labeled them, archived them. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was documenting. Every violation letter, every footstep on our lawn, every smirk into the lens. It wasn't paranoia. It was pattern. But still, I felt alone. Until I got a DM. I saw your post before they took it down. I know what she's doing. I have screenshots. Want to talk? Parker B again. I typed back without hesitation. Absolutely. The next day, I met Parker at the local diner off Route 17. Turns out, Parker B was Parker Bellamy, a soft-spoken freelance accountant who lived 3 blocks down. He had a neatly trimmed beard and wore glasses that fogged up when we sat near the window. She fined me $400 for leaving a recycling bin visible for 10 minutes, he said, sliding a folder across the table. Thing is, there's no actual clause about that. She just typed it up and signed it as acting HOA chair. You tried fighting it? I did, Parker said. Then she cited me for inappropriate attitude during HOA communications. I blinked. That's not even a real rule. Exactly. In that folder were copies of letters, payment records, even screenshots of PayPal transactions, all going to an account labeled M. Delaney Community Solutions, not a registered HOA account, not even a business. My gut twisted. She's running a con, Parker nodded, and we're all paying for it. I drove home that night with my headlights off until I was in the driveway. Snow had started falling again. Soft, silent. But my mind was loud. I stood in the front yard for a long time, staring at the open patch where our 3rd snowman used to stand before she destroyed it. And right then, I realized she hadn't just crushed a snowman. She'd crushed trust. She'd crushed community. But that was about to change. I looked at the kids' snow gear stacked by the front door. Then I looked at the garage. If she wanted to fight over snowmen, I'd give her one. A real one. There's something sobering about building a trap in your garage while your kids sleep peacefully upstairs. The night I got home from meeting Parker, I didn't sit down. I didn't eat. I didn't turn on the TV. I pulled out an old tarp, cleared the workbench, and stared at the pile of concrete mix I'd used last summer for patio repair. I had steel rods, leftover rebar, and an idea that I'll admit felt a little crazy. But so was she. So was Margo. I worked through the night. Layer by layer, I built the core. Not of snow, but of steel and stone. The rebar twisted together like a spine, encased in a cylindrical, concrete form, I poured into a mold fashioned from a trash can. I embedded hooks to keep snow packed tightly around the outside. It was heavy. Stupid heavy. I had to use a dolly, just to move it across the garage floor. At 3 a.m., Rachel came out, bleary-eyed and holding a mug. She took one look at what I was building and didn't even ask. "You're sure this is smart?" she asked softly. "No," I said, wiping sweat off my brow. "But it's necessary." She stared at me for a long moment, then handed me the coffee. "Just don't let it be about revenge. Make it about protection." That stuck with me. By the next evening, the temperature dropped again. Perfect snowpacking weather. Mia and Jonah begged to build another snowman. This time, I said yes. But I didn't let them help much. I rolled snow carefully around the concrete frame until it was perfectly disguised. Smooth, solid, and just slightly larger than before. 3 proud layers. A thrift store scarf, Jonah's old beanie, twigs for arms, and I even carved a little smile. I wanted it to look harmless, playful, innocent. Beneath it, though, was a fortress. I positioned it in the exact same spot as the previous snowmen. The message was clear: come and try again. And I waited. The first night passed. Nothing. Second night, just the sound of wind and a few raccoons. By the third night, I started wondering if maybe she'd caught wind of something. Maybe Parker and I had moved too soon. Maybe she'd seen the video footage I sent to our private network of neighbors and decided to back off. But Margo wasn't the type to back off. She was the type to circle, to bide her time, to strike when you're least ready. So I didn't let my guard down. I set up my cameras with tighter angles, night vision, audio pickup, backup power. I even angled the motion light just enough to flare if a car pulled into the cul-de-sac too fast. And then, it happened. Friday night, 11:14 p.m. I was half asleep on the couch when I heard it, the distinct growl of her engine. I jumped up and ducked behind the blinds. There she was, Margo's Range Rover inching down the street like a shark in shallows. She circled once, headlights off, then again, this time slower. I could almost hear her thinking, "Why is it still standing? Why haven't they learned yet?" And then, without warning, she floored it. The headlights blazed. The tires screamed. She aimed straight at the snowman like a heat-seeking missile. And then, boom! A sickening crunch of metal. The front end of the Range Rover buckled, hood crumpling like a soda can. The snowman, barely a scratch. Just a little tilt. I hit record. Margo flung open the door, stumbling out in a fury. She stared at the damage, then at the snowman, hands shaking, eyes wide. She marched up to it, kicked the base. Clang. Not snow. Not anymore. She turned to the camera. She knew. She knew she'd been baited. But here's the thing. She didn't call the cops. She didn't yell for help. She just stared. And then left. No words. No paper. No smug little fine this time. Just the sound of a wounded ego limping into the dark. Back inside, I downloaded the footage to 3 drives. One went to Parker. One went into a fireproof box. And the third? That was for someone very specific. Because the damage she just caused wasn't just property. It was the tip of the iceberg. And I had no intention of letting her drown quietly. By Saturday morning, the Range Rover was gone. Probably towed. There was a thick trail of oil and pride left behind on the asphalt, curving up the street like a scar. But the snowman, still standing, leaning slightly, smiling through it all. I started calling him Iron Frosty in my head. The crash video made its rounds faster than I expected. Parker uploaded it anonymously to a shared Google Drive for residents in the HOA. No flashy titles, no accusations, just cold, time-stamped reality. By noon, my phone buzzed every 5 minutes. "She did what? I thought I was the only one." "You have to see what she fined me for." The neighborhood was waking up, not with pitchforks but with receipts. Literal receipts. Screenshots, letters, transaction histories, Venmo transfers labeled HOA fine, going straight to an account called @MD Solutions. That wasn't a company. It wasn't registered with the state. It wasn't even traceable on any legitimate HOA filings with the county. Saturday afternoon, we hosted something I never thought would happen here. A neighborhood meeting in my garage. 10 people crammed into the space between my workbench and the snow shovels. There were folding chairs, thermoses of coffee, and someone even brought donuts. The good kind, with powdered sugar that clung to your guilt. The vibe, not angry, not fearful, just tired. Tired of feeling like they lived under surveillance. Tired of paying for violations that weren't real. Tired of being told their porch gnomes were an eyesore, or their garbage bins. Too visible from the curb. Mrs. Ortega, who'd lived here since 1992, pulled out a shoebox of warning letters. I paid her nearly $900 last year. I thought I was keeping things peaceful. She used fear, Parker said calmly. Not rules. I brought out my laptop, opened up a spreadsheet. Every fine, I said. Every date, amount, and transfer, we're going to track them all. Then we compare them to real HOA laws filed at the county clerk's office. But what if there is no HOA? Someone asked quietly. That was the moment. The room fell silent. And then Parker said what we were all thinking. Then she's not just overstepping. She's committing fraud. The next day, Parker and I took a little trip to the county office. The clerk, a bored-looking woman with glasses that kept sliding down her nose, tapped away at her keyboard, chewing gum like it was her job. When we gave her the supposed name of the HOA, she frowned, typed slower, then shook her head. No active HOA registered under that name. Closest thing is from a neighborhood 2 towns over. Expired in 2007. I slid the USB across the counter. This has video evidence, payment records, and screenshots of false notices. We think it's criminal. She plugged it in. Watch the Range Rover crash footage first. By the end of the minute-long clip, she wasn't chewing anymore. This is something, she said, almost reverently. Then, to someone in the back room, Frank, call the city attorney, now. Word spread faster than gossip at a Sunday brunch. Monday morning, 2 squad cars pulled up to Margo's house. They didn't arrest her, not yet. But they were there, asking questions, taking statements. One officer even walked out with a shredder and a box labeled financials. I stood across the street, coffee in hand, pretending to trim a bush that didn't need trimming. Inside, Mia pressed her face to the window. Is that about the snowman? She asked. I paused. Yes and no. Rachel stood beside me, arms crossed, silent. She didn't smile, not yet. But there was a glint in her eye I hadn't seen in months. That night, the HOA Facebook group, usually a dead zone of recipe swaps and lawnmower ads, exploded. Everyone had a story. Everyone had been wronged. One guy shared a letter where Margo threatened to have his daughter's bike removed from the driveway. Another posted a warning she issued over someone smelling like barbecue on a non-designated grilling day. It wasn't just control. It was delusion. She had built a miniature dictatorship, papered over with made-up rules and glittery fonts. And somehow, we'd all just gone along with it. Then came the message from Parker. She's finished. The attorney's filing fraud and tax evasion charges. Her PayPal and Venmo history, all traceable. She's been skimming off this neighborhood for years. And the kicker? She's already moved money offshore. Someone's digging into that now, too. I stared at my screen, exhaled slowly, and looked outside. Iron Frosty still stood on the lawn, lopsided, melting a little at the top, but still tall, still strong. And for the first time, I understood what we'd built. By Wednesday morning, the silence on our street felt different. Not the usual suburban hush of empty garages and sprinkler systems, but that dense, electric quiet before something big breaks. The kind of silence that knows the truth is finally out, and it's just waiting for someone to say it out loud. The Range Rover? Gone. The driveway? Empty. And the front porch of Margo's house, once pristine, once perfectly pruned, was now littered with dead leaves and a notice taped to the door. County seizure. Pending investigation. That afternoon, the local news van rolled in. Not a big station, just Channel 6. The kind of place where anchors still do their own makeup. And the camera guy wears shorts in winter. But it didn't matter. They set up in front of my neighbor's yard, and I watched through the blinds as the anchor, bright red coat, blue gloves, stood in front of the camera and said the words I'd been waiting for. Breaking tonight in Maple Glen. A woman posing as an HOA official faces multiple charges including fraud, tax evasion, and financial abuse of residents. Sources say the investigation began after a video surfaced of her ramming her SUV into a neighborhood snowman. Rachel turned to me, eyes wide. They actually said it. The snowman. I smiled, small but real. He was the first one to take a hit. The kids didn't fully understand what was happening, but they sensed the shift. Mia said school felt lighter. Jonah asked if we could build a girl snowman next and call her Judge Frostina. I nearly choked on my coffee. But beneath the laughter, something else was growing in the neighborhood. Pride. Unity. Relief. People were waving again. Not fake, not forced. Real waves, Mrs. Ortega brought cookies over. Parker got invited to dinner by the couple down the block who used to pretend he didn't exist. One guy fixed the broken bench in the park, the one Margo had ordered to be removed. Thursday afternoon, I got a call from the city attorney's office. A woman named Dana thanked me for my civic vigilance. She said the videos and financial documents provided enough probable cause to press formal charges. Then, she said something that stuck with me. It's rare that something as small as a snowman becomes the domino that topples a scheme like this. But sometimes the quietest things leave the loudest impact. I looked out the window at Iron Frosty, now half melted, scarf drooping, but still upright, still watching. Later that day, we held another meeting, but this time, it wasn't in my garage. It was in the middle of the street. No one blocked it off. No permits. Just lawn chairs, folding tables, crock pots full of chili, and kids running wild with plastic swords. Someone brought a speaker and played throwback pop. Parker made a homemade sign that read, HOA, more like hell no. People laughed. For real. Rachel hugged me in the middle of it all. A real hug. Not the tired ones we'd gotten used to during long nights and tense mornings. You okay? She whispered. I nodded. Better than I've been in a long time. But she looked around the crowd, then back at me. You realize, you didn't just protect our kid's snowman. You protected everyone's. Right before sunset, Margo's former assistant, a timid young woman named Elise, who'd handled emails and scheduling, approached me. She held an envelope, hands shaking. She made me send most of the fines, Elise said. But I kept copies. All of them. I couldn't sleep at night. Inside the envelope, dozens of forged letters, fake regulations, even a printed rule book with no legal standing. All signed by Margo. Why are you giving this to me? I asked. Because you're the only one who stood up to her, she said. And I think the snowman deserves to win. I laughed. Actually laughed. By Friday morning, the final piece dropped. A foreclosure notice now nailed to Margo's door. Her assets frozen. PayPal and Venmo accounts seized. She'd wired over $70,000 in neighborhood fees to offshore accounts, thinking no one would question a little suburban compliance. They did now, and for once, the law moved fast. I walked out with Jonah on my shoulders and Mia skipping beside us. The snow had melted to slush, the sidewalks gritty with salt, but everything felt new, lighter. Across the lawn, I saw someone had built a miniature snowman, crooked, barely 2 feet tall, with a sign stuck in front. Thanks, Frosty. You saved us. Spring came late that year. Like the town itself needed time to thaw. The snow stuck around longer than usual, clinging to the roofs, the gutters, the empty flower beds where color hadn't dared return yet. And somehow, Iron Frosty refused to melt. a little misshapen now, scarf hanging by a thread, but still standing tall in our front yard. He'd become a symbol, not of revenge, not even of resistance, but of something harder to define. Resilience, maybe. Dignity, with twigs for arms. One Sunday morning, I sat with Mia and Jonah at the kitchen table. Rachel made pancakes, humming some old song from college, her eyes brighter than they'd been in months. I pulled out my laptop and opened the news. There it was. Third update this week. Maple Glen HOA fraud case. Moves to grand jury. Margo Delaney faces multiple felony charges. I scrolled down, not out of spite, but closure. The comment section was filled with people, not just from our neighborhood, but strangers, from other towns, even states. Some shared similar experiences. Fake HOAs, power-hungry, self-appointed leaders, fines with no foundation. But others just said, "I can't believe it started with a snowman." I could. Every fight starts somewhere. Ours started with a smile carved into snow. That afternoon, I sat the kids down in front of the window, pointed to what was left of Frosty and said, "You know why he's still here?" Jonah, mouth full of pancakes, shrugged. "'Cause it's cold." I smiled. "Because he stood up." Mia leaned against my arm. "Like you did." I looked at them, at their faces. Still innocent, still believing in right and wrong like it was black and white, and I realized maybe that's why I fought so hard. Not to win, but so they'd grow up in a place where you don't let bullies build thrones out of silence. The neighborhood changed too. We voted, officially this time, to dissolve the HOA that was never really there. Instead, we started a volunteer committee for real community needs. Repairs, events, shared resources. No fines, no threats. Just neighbors looking out for neighbors. Parker got elected chair. Mrs. Ortega handled the flower beds. Elise, the assistant who'd come forward, now ran a monthly newsletter that included a cartoon called Frosty's Corner, where a snowman dished out sarcastic advice on lawn care and local gossip. People smiled again, the kind that reached their eyes. A few weeks later, I passed Margo's house, now owned by a young couple from out of state. The windows were open. A kid's bike lay tipped over in the front yard. There was noise inside, laughter, music, life. The only thing left from the past was a faint outline on the mailbox where her name used to be. Faded, forgotten. As April rolled in, Frosty finally gave in. One morning, he was gone. Just a puddle, a scarf, and a crooked carrot resting gently in the grass. Mia picked up the scarf and looked at me. "Should we build a new one next winter?" I nodded. Always. We don't get to choose our battles. Sometimes they show up in SUVs with forged authority and clipboard smiles. But we do get to choose how we respond. With fear, or with cameras, concrete, and the quiet determination to say, "Not here. Not again." And sometimes, just sometimes, all it takes is one snowman to freeze a fraud in her tracks, to thaw a community from its silence, and to remind us all that even the softest things can stand strong when they're built on truth.